Max Verstappen has opened up on the upcoming championship campaign, sending a fierce message to his rivals that his driving style is very unlikely to change now that he doesn't have the most competitive car in his hands. Multiple drivers will have the opportunity to end the championship winning streak of the Dutchman in 2025, including the duo of Ferrari and McLaren drivers. But if there is a dark horse that could extract the maximum from what is given, topped with an aggressive and unique driving style, then that is definitely Verstappen. So can he continue with the moves that made people like Norris and Brown angry? And if so, how will his rivals respond to this style of racing? It goes without saying that Verstappen is one of the most aggressive drivers when it comes to wheel-to-wheel racing, and there are a couple of drivers who can testify to that. Norris has probably gotten off with the thicker end of things from these duels, as we'll recall the 2024 Austrian GP. But if we go back to 2021, when Verstappen and Hamilton were clashing like titans, you would recall races like Monza, Silverstone, Brazil and Jeddah not presenting the cleanest racing maneuvers that we could think of. Nevertheless, Verstappen hasn't had an opportunity to race a lot of drivers in 2023, but in 2024 he was challenged by drivers like Norris and occasionally Leclerc. But what is obvious is that 2025 is going to be a massive challenge now that the competitiveness of the Red Bull team has dropped, and when talking about how his racing style is going to accommodate this situation, the Dutchman was adamant that he is not going to change anything in his approach and is willing to cross a line in order to win a title. Furthermore, he said, "I will always go to the limit to get the most out of every race. If I have to force it, then that's just how it goes. Sometimes you have to cross a line. I will always do everything to get the maximum result for a championship. And of course, sometimes you have to go to the limit or over the limit. And not everyone understands that. Not everyone has that mentality." This is something that Norris has received a lot of criticism for in 2024, not racing Verstappen hard enough and just expecting him to succumb under pressure or leave him enough place to pass when he was being pushed from behind. We are talking about the man who won the maiden championship in 2021 against a driver who pushed for the record-breaking 8th title. And if you expect that Verstappen is going to change something in his approach, you might as well believe that Santa is real. But at the end of the day, there is a clear indicator that Red Bull is not going to be the most dominant team in 2025 by a large margin. And with a very compacted grid, we might as well see a vulnerable version of the four-time world champion that we saw on a couple of occasions in 2024. The fight with McLaren was an intense one until Brazil, but now with Piastri stating that he has the qualities to be a world champion, rest assured that Max is going to have to level up his game in order to secure the 5th title. And believe me when I say it's definitely going to be the most valuable one from all of the titles he's received so far. Yes, we have to look at other camps as well now that the centre of attention is not just Red Bull, and drivers like Leclerc have also opened up about the upcoming battles with Verstappen. The Monegasque driver believes that he now has the ingredients to win the first championship for Ferrari since 2025, even though his biggest enemy might be the teammate Hamilton rather than Verstappen. Nevertheless, the Ferrari project is currently centred around Leclerc, and even though they have two alpha drivers, as both Vasseur and Horner stated, Leclerc is adamant that there will be fierce battles with Verstappen that he is not going to back down from. Ferrari is a team that managed to level up their game and turn their biggest flaw into an advantage: tyre preservation and race pace. And in 2025, that is very likely to be the ace in the sleeve that Leclerc is going to bet on when battling Verstappen. When talking about fighting Verstappen to the very extreme, Leclerc said, "You've got to pick your battles, and I feel like Max knows how to adapt to different situations, and we've seen it. There were moments last season when he was not aggressive, but when the end of the season arrived and Lando was coming back there, you could see him play with the rules a lot more, and I feel like I've got that in me. I know that whenever big things will be at stake, when it will be a moment to take those risks with the right people, I'll go for it. But that is also why I've always enjoyed racing with Max. The mentality of the driver is a big apart. And where we would be in this situation if Nico Rosberg, the 2016 champion and the man who had to fight one of the greatest drivers in the history of the sport and beat him in 1 out of 3 tries, didn't weigh in on the entire Verstappen-Norris situation. The German driver feels like Norris has learned how to control Verstappen's driving style and that now he is going to be doing a lot of studying in the winter period in order to fine-tune the attacks, the pushes and the charges that would enable him to pass Verstappen without crashing. Because from the latest statement from the 4-time world champion, you might as well expect that a lot of crashes are incoming. Elaborating further on this, Rosberg said, Norris needs to analyse and prepare the hell out of him for the 2025 season. He needs to analyse every single wheel-to-wheel battle that Verstappen has been in through the last 3 years. Every single one. The team needs to prepare the snippets of videos and he needs to study them to understand what he could do better tactically to beat Max in those situations. The support for the Brit came from his team boss Zak Brown, who believes that his driver has learned how to deal with Verstappen, and no matter what is going to change from the Dutchman's driving style, it's not going to affect how Lando is going to approach the racing spectre because he knows how to deal with him on the track. He didn't know that at the beginning of the season, as we saw in Austria and maybe even in Imola, where he had a chance to bank in on a surprising win. But in Mexico, we've seen that Norris has definitely shown his qualities as a driver, and that is what Brown referred to. Further adding, I think Lando has learned how to fight against Max because Max has been very open about how he drives. If you try to overtake him on the outside, he won't let you. But Lando gave him a great fight in Mexico and also made sure that there was no clash between the two of them. We were fighting for the Constructors' title and we couldn't afford to be too aggressive. So Lando did the right thing, and I think he knows exactly how to deal with Max on the track. I am convinced that he will perform differently next year. But of course, in order for this to happen, Red Bull needs to have a very competitive car, and we've seen that the second half of 2024 has shown that they are in a downward slope with the upgrades of their car, which suggests that the Austrian team would need to conduct a bit of a deeper research and invest all of their resources to develop the RB21 in a proper way. The early statements from Marco say that the car is hitting the targets they've set so far, but Verstappen has sent a chilling message to the Red Bull team that if they continue with the development pace that they've set in the past couple of months, he is definitely not going to become a champion in 2025. When talking about it, the 4-time world champion said, "If we continue like this, I will not be champion next year. It is that simple. We really have to take steps to be competitive next season. We all know that. I trust that the team can fix the balance problems of the last season, and certain things that we could not change last year will be changed for next year. We know that it has to be better over the curbs, bumps and in the slow corners. Those are generally our weak points. If we are still beaten, it will be on the basis of pure speed. I always keep the pressure on, also on myself. I try not to think too lightly about it because at one point the car was barely steerable." With all this in mind, do you think that Verstappen's threats of going over the limit are going to end in a massive turmoil on the track? And if so, how do you think the FIA and the rest of the grid will respond to it? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to check out the video that's appearing on your screen right now.